Good morning, neighbor. Memorial Day. That's a day I have to admit, I'm sorry, but somebody had to tell me several years ago that Memorial Day was set aside for people who actually gave everything in service to their country so we could have the freedom that we abuse on a regular basis these days, but we're not going to get started on that. But I do have a story for you. It's a very powerful story that if you think about how it came to be, for me, myself, I just think that God was in it. I'll always believe that. Let me give you the background. I was working for a wonderful little company called Madix in a town called Goodwater, Alabama. Madix makes any chef you ever want to see in a store anywhere. They can fix you up, and no, that's not an advertisement. That's just folks I work with, and I have confidence. Well, they had a fellow by the name of Matt Story to come around and teach us lean manufacturing principles. And Mac was the kind of fellow that he wanted to see the company do good, but he wanted to see the employees do good too. So he spent a lot of time talking to us about following the dream. Never let it die. Never let nobody say you can't do it. Well, he didn't know it at the time, but I was writing a book. And if you know anything about me, you know that I wrote a book. The title of it is The Life I Had Lived and Those Who Came Before Me. That book came out not too long after Mac finished working with us at Madix. Well, somebody at Madix, I'll never know who, thought enough to send Mac a copy of that book. Mac read it and he liked it so much, he said, my grandmother would love this. And so he sent her a copy. And she read it and she liked it so much that she sent copies to every relative she had. I understand one was even in Hawaii. And she made a comment to Mac. She said, I sure would love to meet you. She had worked in the mills in a little town called Lynette, close to where I was raised. And she said, I'd like to meet you. I'd like to talk to you. Well, she didn't know it. She lived in a little town called Taliesin. My family was living at the time in a town called Alexander City, right on the banks of Lake Martin. In fact, they call Lake Martin the Gateway. Pretty place, plenty of good fishing, good recreation. If you've never been there, I highly recommend that one too. No, that's not an advertisement either. I lived there, and I have fond memories there. So, Max, I think we can make that happen. And so, my wife's job had moved her here where we live now in Tennessee. I was at home tying up the house, and waiting to retire. I was going to retire from Madix. And so I spent Thanksgiving Day with Miss Marie Gibson, Mac, and his lovely wife, Bria, their family, and had a blast. Marie introduced me to something that day that you all ought to get a recipe for and try. It's called cornbread cake. Now, honey, if you ain't never had cornbread cake, you're not living right. And if you want to do it really good, if you take you a big old gob of banana pudding and put it on top of that cornbread cake, your taste buds will fight one another trying to get to it first. I'm just telling you. And we had such a good day that day, and I got a chance to talk to Marie, and yes, we did talk about the cotton mills. But when I think about it now, I cannot remember 10 things that we said about those mills because of this story that I'm fixing to tell you. As we sat at that kitchen table that day, she said, I've got a story for you, I think. And I said, well, let me hear it. And this is the story she told me. She had an uncle. His name was Olin Williams. Now, when the Japanese got drunk on stupid and bombed Pearl Harbor, and I'm sorry, I don't know any other way to say that, they did awaken a sleeping giant, and they regretted it when it was too late to regret. But anyhow, when they did that, Olin did what multiples of thousands of young men in this country did in that day. They said, I don't think so. And recruiting stations just filled up with young men. Owen was one of them. He went into the army. His landing craft was one of the first that made it ashore at Normandy. He fought through that hell, and he fought through every battle up to the Battle of the Bulge, where he was wounded. They sent him home honorably discharged. He got home and he healed up, decided he didn't want to be discharged. He went back into the army. Now think about that. Think about what Normandy must have been like. If you've seen the movie Saving Private Ryan, I recommend that to you. If you want to see what that war really looked like up close. You lived through Normandy. You wounded at the Battle of the Bulge, and that wasn't no picnic either. You got a chance to go home and just finish your life any which way you want to, draw your army pension check, and instead of that, you say, you know what, I'm not done yet. And you go back. And he made that his career. Well, several years later, Korea comes along. And it didn't go very well for the Allies at first. They almost got pushed out into the ocean. But they came up with a really neat plan to go up the coast and land a bunch of soldiers to come in behind the North Vietnamese army. Now they had to fight between two walls, and the Allies just decimated that army and pushed them all the way back up almost to China. And the general said, I'll have you boys home before Christmas. And he might have, except he didn't take into account the Chinese were very, very nervous about the Allies just overcoming North Korea. They were convinced that the Allies would then invade their country and try to take it over, which that was never even mentioned. The whole idea, the whole focus, the whole goal was North Korea being under a democratic government. So the Allies have pushed the North Koreans almost to the border with China. They come to a place called Chosin Reservoir. And that's exactly what it was. Except in the wintertime, when you could have temperatures as low as 40 below zero, that reservoir froze solid. So solid you could drive tanks across it, or any number of things, and have soldiers marching across it at the same time, and it was solid. It wasn't going anywhere. So the Allies come to Chosin River and they pause. Meanwhile, the Chinese have, and I've read about it, and I still don't know, how do you do this? 150,000+ soldiers have come into North Korea from China. Now, I read that they were able to do that by traveling at night and hiding / sleeping in the daytime. And I understand they didn't have the technology then they have now to be able to tell just by a heat signature somebody was moving. Nevertheless, how does 150,000 men get that close to, much less surround an army? That's exactly what happened. All of a sudden, literally all frozen hell broke loose. The Chinese circled our guys up, and they fought their way out. And they circled them up a second time, and they fought their way out. A Marine general at the time, when somebody said something to him about surrender, he said, surrender, hell, we're just advancing in a different direction. And the third time they were circled up, and they fought their way out. On that third encirclement, Master Sergeant Odin Williams came up missing. Time marches on. Master Sergeant Williams had a family that just wouldn't let it go. They were going to find him. Years later, they let people go in and search, and they began to find bodies and so forth. And those they could identify were turned over to their families. Those they could not, they used any information they could and put on the marker, and they buried that unknown soldier in a temporary cemetery in Hawaii. Now, do you believe that Master Sergeant Williams being found had everything to do with a gold tooth that an off-base dentist put in him in Columbus, Georgia, Fort Benning. He had the off-base dentist. He had a tooth problem. Dentist put a gold tooth in his mouth. That gold tooth helped him eventually be identified by his family. And they carried him back to Clanton, Alabama, where he was buried in the family plot. Miss Marie looked at me that day after she told me this story, showed me newspaper clippings and pictures and so forth. She said, "Hugh, do you think you can get a story out of that?" I said, "Honey, if I can, I'll just quit writing." And I had every intent maybe of doing a book on it. And over the years, I just have not been able to get enough material together or get enough. You want a book like that to tell a real story, and you want it to compliment, to do honor to the man you're talking about. Nevertheless, though, if you are a writer, you know this. Words come to your mind. You ain't got nothing to do with writing down when they come to your mind. Otherwise, they're gone. And something came to me one day, and I came up with this, and I'm going to take it off this easel and read it to you because Lord knows I haven't memorized all this. But I made very careful. I was very careful about at the bottom. I tell my reader that this is done in honor of Master Sergeant Owen Barry Williams, who served in World War II and died at Chosin River in Korea. And in memory of Miss Marie Gibson, who told me this story. Marie was a beautiful soul. I left her home that day feeling like I'd known her for a really long time. Felt the same way about Mac and his family. And I've lost touch with them since we moved to Tennessee. I've always thought I would come to a place where I could let them know that I never forgot Owen Williams or his service to this country. Never dreamed I'd be doing this, what I'm doing right now, but I'm going to read this to you, then I'm going to make a challenge to you. I want you to listen very carefully. This again is entitled The Fellowship from the Frozen Chosin. And if you think about it, it speaks to a lot more than just the Korean War. Listen and see what you think. Tyranny washed in like a flood with destructive power. That's the way tyranny always does in its highest hour. People who live just to live in a land where freedom reigns were driven before tyranny with force, and they endured much pain. But tyranny forgot about liberty, a force so seldom beaten. Liberty, that great general of peace, hates tyranny for a reason. Tyranny binds up people who liberty tries so hard to loose. Tyranny takes away people's right to be governed as they choose. Liberty made a clarion call to soldiers who would fight. Liberty said tyranny does its most deadly work in the dead of night. Tyranny will give no quarter. Destruction is its aim. Fighting tyranny for many of you will bring death as your omen van. Then into the light of liberty a band of brothers stepped out. We'll fight this demon tyranny, they all said with a shout. And if death is to be our end, a badge of honor it will be, if it brings down low this shameful, murdering demon called tyranny. Liberty looked at this band of brothers with pride and not a few tears. Liberty knew that these warriors would go forth to this battle with no fear. Liberty saw the awful conflict that would soon unfold. Liberty knew they would fight with valor, and a story someday would be told, with a name that history guarantees will never be forgotten. This band of brothers, this fellowship of the frozen Chosin. Liberty's warriors drove forward, and for a time it seemed that tyranny would be vanquished and liberty would reign. But tyranny is not easily busted. And to these brothers' surprise, tyranny attacked in a way least expected, and good men began to die. It was 30 degrees below zero when tyranny flooded in. Tyranny surrounded liberty's warriors, and desperate fighting began. Tyranny flung itself over and over against the frozen Chosin. thinking its next charge would be the one that caused them to be broken. But tyranny can have its own turn at overconfidence too. 3 times the frozen met tyranny, and 3 times fought their way through. For every one of the frozen Chosin warriors tyranny fell, 4 of tyranny's dirty warriors were sent by the frozen to hell. It's true that the frozen Chosin warriors we're talking about fought backward from the country they fought in and were finally forced out. But if you think tyranny was beaten, my friend, get your world map out. The country this battle was fought in was Korea. Then as now, north and south. The map you see today looks the same as it did in that day. Liberty has not been beaten, friends. Liberty still lives there today. Look at history and you will see when tyranny almost prevailed, that warriors of liberty rose with a vengeance, and once again tyranny failed. And there's not a better example of men who beat back tyranny's poison than remembering this band of brothers, this fellowship of the frozen Chosin. I'll give you a challenge. You know, within the next 10 years, the last warrior of World War II will be gone. They're leaving so fast. Probably 25 years, the last Korean War soldier will be gone. The Vietnam guys are all in their 60s and early 70s. We're losing warriors of freedom every single day. And I'd like to do something. If you can send me verification that you have a soldier in your family who fought in this battle, I'd like him to have one of those. And I'll send it to him at my cost. I must be able to verify that he fought. Maybe he has a story he'd like to share. I'd like to get it. As time goes on, you're going to see a lot of these things that I've been able to do. And now that I'm retired, I can do even more. And I'll be offering these to the general public. Not tourist prices, you know what I mean? You won't feel like you're in a tourist town trying to buy something. I promise you that. But these things will be offered up. But for this, for Memorial Day, as we remember people who gave the last breath they had, defending freedom that, like I said before, we take for granted and abuse too much in this world we live in today. For this project, you verify to me you have a soldier that fought in that battle. And I want to see that he gets one of these, whatever it takes. Everybody else will be announcing, not too distant future. I'm new at this. I'm still trying to figure out how to price things, how do you make a little butter and egg money with it. And we'll do due diligence on that. But I want to start with my guys who fought in this battle, in this war. Do you know one? Reach out to me, would you? I'll get in touch with you. We'll have a little chat. I will always stand for our military guys. I will never, ever see a man pass by me with a military identification hat on that I don't say thank you for your service. And I have no patience with cowards who abuse our flag and burn it in the name of the very freedom these men died to protect. Are you serious? I will never, ever disrespect my flag or the men who have fought under that flag for our freedom. God bless your hearts for listening today. As you can tell, there's some things I can get kind of emotional about. I make no apologies. I will not back up, back down, or back away. On this one, I'm right. You flag burners and you haters, you are wrong, and you always will be. Have a great day, y'all. I love you. Bye-bye.